Hello everybody, welcome to another special edition of Star Citizen Not So Live. I'm your host Jared Huckabee, and if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's usually where we take about an hour out of the end of our week and we sit down with our developers and we discuss their work, their lives, their habits, their love of chicken. On this week's show, we are pre-taped because I'm going to Bar Citizen Milan this weekend, and we have a special guest here in the studio available to do a show live, so we thought we'd take advantage of that. Joining us on the show for the first half here are esteemed members of the EU-PU feature team. We got Thorston and Guillermo. Thorston, Guillermo, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here.
There's nothing wrong with love for chicken.
There's nothing wrong with love for chicken.
Thank you.
All right, so you're here today because you presented the resource management presentation at CitizenCon this year. And we collected some questions and we tried to do a follow-up show about 2 weeks ago, and we unfortunately had some terrible network and computer-related problems. We weren't able to finish your show, so thank you for being here. Thorston, can I ask, what brings you to Manchester in person? It wasn't this. I don't have that kind of budget.
No. Actually, it's two reasons. So one is the restructure that will happen next year. So meeting the folks that come over from the Squadron team and get to know them. So because they will be working closely with me on the PU. And the second, more important for the community, is actually the release, or the soon to be released structural salvage, because we have our go no go at the end of the week, and because of the importance of the feature, we decided it makes sense to come over and help the team to get it ready.
Well, that's the virtue of Frankfurt just being a hop, skip, and a jump over the channel anyway.
Yeah.
So, all right, so a few weeks ago, we put up a thread collecting questions. We collected those questions from you, the Star Citizen community, and let you vote up which ones you wanted to see answer most. Then Guillermo and Thorston went through the questions and pulled the questions that they felt they had the best answers for, and we're just going to jump into it. So the first question, which actually is sort of answered by our SRV episode that just aired yesterday by the time people see this, will soft death ships be repairable? We know from ISC the answer is yes, but can you give us any more information on this? How does this work?
So the first thing is that soft death is a bit of a temporary solution. We don't have the full damage penetration. We showed a placeholder for it at CitizenCon. And I think everybody saw the Maelstrom presentation with the ships breaking apart. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be part of it. What we right now have for soft death eventually will be more of a systemic thing, in that some ships, if they kill your power plant or they kill all your relays, or you have a very bad crash landing and you no longer have wings, or your ship is no longer able to fly or to move under its own power, there will be some degree of repairs you can do manually if you get spare parts, or you've got engineers working on it. But as you mentioned, the SRB is also the solution when that ship cannot fly. There's nowhere to repair it on the field. You just throw it back to a base and do the regular repairs there.
And so I understand. So like I said, right now we have this soft death. It's this. The entire thing doesn't just destroy; it just becomes kind of a potentially useless hulk. Mm-hmm. But with the SRV, we'll now be able to grab it with a tractor beam and pull it back to a repair station and get it repaired instead of waiting for the insurance payout.
The repair isn't in yet, so you will be able to move it, and but repairing, I think, doesn't. We didn't prepare for that yet, so there is no drop-off points yet with the SRV. But for the future, that will be the case, that you have the dedicated drop-off points where you can then fix the ships that you cannot repair on site anymore, especially the bigger ships with, because there's the concept of size 1 and size 2 ship items you can replace, right? You can pull them out with a tractor beam and pull something or push something back in to that, whereas with the bigger items, size 3 and size upwards, you cannot remove. So if they are destroyed, you lost them, and then you need to bring the ship that is now dead in the water into the hangar and have it repaired there.
Gotcha. So after 322, some version of you'll be able to bring the soft death ships back to specific places to get them repaired, so you can bypass the recovery thing. And then, of course, as Maelstrom and more elements of the physicalized damage system comes online, soft death itself goes away, and it just becomes your ship can now be disabled through a variety of methods, and therefore resolved and fixed through a variety of methods. Okay. Mm-hmm. Next question. With the implementation of the engineering role, how hard will it be for a solo player to fly a multi-crew ship like the Cutlass, Constellation, or anything bigger?
So it will be harder, but only it will be harder if you have a ship that already has a certain age. So if you have your brand new ship that you just pulled out of your hangar for the first time, the wear and tear is non-existent on it. So that means that there is no maintenance required. So if you prepare the energy management on the ship, no matter the big the ship is, you can fly it on your own. But does it really make sense? Because then you are suddenly on the move, then you might get attacked, so parts will get destroyed on your way. That will result in, you from the pilot seat have to get up and then walk over to those destroyed pieces and repair them. So yes, you can do it, but like it will be a real pain to actually maintain your ship. So yeah.
This is pretty consistent with the messaging we've had since the beginning of this. We introduced the idea of the engineer role at CitizenCon 2952, then followed up on it with an ISC towards the beginning of this year, and then you guys followed up on it with the resource management presentation at this year. So we've done 3 pretty, hefty deep dives into this idea of engineering and the resource management system. And through all 3 of them, it's been pretty clear, this doesn't make it impossible to operate by yourself. It's just going to make it easier and more effective if you bring friends, if you bring talented and skilled friends who understand these roles. But if you're willing to put in the elbow grease,
and that was always very important to us, that we make sure that we don't block away the content for players that really would like to fly out their ship.
Yeah.
And it works. They can travel from A to B, and if they avoid combat and if they make sure that they maintain it when they have the time to actually maintain it and bring down the wear and tear again. Sure, it will run smoothly, with fresh cars, right? So you can also have a fresh car that just doesn't break that easily, right?
Yeah, and it also comes down to the difference between single fighters or any ships with interiors. And if you're in a fighter, you lose a component, well, that's it. Your wing is gone. You cannot stop and, attach it again. Or, any of your internal components get hit, you're dead. When you're with a multi-crew ship, you can just take that damage and accept that you no longer have seal generators. The difference obviously is if you have a crew, they can put out fires, they can really mitigate that damage, or find solutions for stuff that if you're solo, well, it's going to be more complicated. But again, the ship works. It's not like we're going to purposefully make multi-crew ships bad, or wars. It's kind of the opposite. If a multi-crew ship with a crew ends up being more survivable, more effective, because again it has all these redundancies. If it's on fire, you can put it out. If there's a missing component, you can replace it, which is something you don't get.
It's building an effective baseline for a single player and then finding ways to improve the experience by adding friends.
Yeah, it's going to be the same if we're talking about turrets. Obviously, you have friends in the turrets. Well, you can shoot better because you actually have access to those guns. Or if you get boarded or somebody stows away, you have more friends inside. Well, again, that's also a plus.
Maybe with your friends. My friends aren't so good.
Yeah, well, they also, David, if you send a UPU playtest, it tends to be we kill ourselves accidentally. So.
You had something you wanted that you were thinking about adding there, Thorston.
What?
No? Okay, good.
Oh.
Let's see. Next question is about repair. Are mini games planned to fix things, or is it just nothing but magic beams over and over and over again?
So there were plans for having more bespoke repair, but that will not be part of the initial release. We will just go for the simple solution first, and then we will observe how that actually is perceived by the community. And if there is the necessity to actually make it more complex or more bespoke per item, then sure, we will think about that. But for now, it is really a very simple repair mechanic for the items, and then we will see. Because what we don't want to do is you need to read a handbook to actually understand, okay, what item do I actually need? What resistor do I need? What capacitor do I need? That doesn't make sense that we have to make people study our game to actually be able to play it. So it's still a game. We are a simulation-driven game, so we want to tailor to that. But we really want this feature also to be out, so we don't want to overcomplicate it and then block the release of it. Yeah. So
it's hard because there isn't one brush you can paint all Star Citizens with.
Yeah.
There are folks who want that 15-person multi-crew capital ship experience. There are people who want to be alone in a starfarer out in the wilderness, just helping people with nobody else's like this. And then there's 100 brushes in between. So finding that sweet spot is always a bit difficult. But I agree with this idea that you get it out in a simplistic, in a functional form, and then you see how it fits with everything else that makes up the entire physicalized damage system. And then it's like, okay, if it does need more complexity, then we add more complexity. And it could be that all the other complexity we add for all the other systems is plenty, and repair is just fine with a simple beam kind of thing. So
yeah, and though that applies to actually repairing the item with the beam, obviously you still have the damage control of the whole ship, which involves, you can have fires, you can have bad atmosphere, you can have, actually loss of atmosphere or, toxic atmosphere due to a fire. Or you could also have relays being knocked out, and you need to figure out which items to, turn off or turn on to compensate and keep fighting as well as you can until somebody can repair that. So there is already a degree of complexity to the damage handling. But yeah, the main thing is going to be right now for repairing just the beam, and we'll see.
Yeah, but actually, you mentioned that we already have some items that need bespoke repair. So we have the fuses for the relay that needs to be exchanged. So that is a type of repair. We also have life support that is its own type of complexity with the scrubbers that you need to exchange to actually, like, at some point they will deplete. So this is also something that can be counted as maintenance or repair in this regards. Then, like Guillermo just said, fire is its own danger. So that is definitely something that has a bespoke counter to it, which is the extinguisher or even venting the rooms. So there are some things that are already a bit more complex than, like, in comparison what we showed at CitizenCon, repairing the power plant, which is, you use the beam to repair it. But yeah, as said, so we have already a lot of complexity, and well, I wouldn't say that our team is the best in handling multi-crew gameplay, but like we try to be good, and it's really hard to manage. Like, even with the amount of people that we had on the ship, you saw us fail in CitizenCon demo. We blew up. That wasn't intention that we blew up. We wanted to have a nice success at the end of the demo, but I was like, okay, let's leave it in. But yeah, so there's a lot of complexity already there.
You make a very good point. I want to be sure we shot. Now, unfortunately, we had to, certain aspects of your presentation, it says we had to rush through because somebody had to be scheduled after the Star Engine presentation, and they ate up a lot of time on that stage, and deservedly so. But one of the key hallmarks as you were developing the presentation is not wanting to fake anything, not wanting to script anything. You were going to set up the scenario and just fly the ship, and whatever was going to fail, however it was going to fail, and you were going to deal with it however you were going to deal with it. And I really appreciated that when watching it, going, oh, they didn't succeed. It's like, well, sometimes that's what's going to happen. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of Star Citizen is we try to present as honest and as forthright a picture of things as we can whenever possible. And that, it's like we tried to save it. We didn't do it that time.
Yep.
Speaking of that demonstration, this next question says, earlier in ISC we saw subcomponents for generators, coolers, and all that stuff, and it even has its own damage model. But in the CitizenCon demo, it looks like this type of engineering doesn't exist. Have subcomponents been replaced by relays, or they just weren't part of that demo?
So, I mean, I guess the fuses for the relays are part of the subcomponents we have, and we also, the life support system also has a set of subcomponents, the scrubbers, for example.
And not only the scrubbers, but
and well, we were also thinking, maybe some components we were thinking about the other day may need to be subcomponents of maybe the CPU or of the avionics system or of the power plant. So yes, but only in the way to say it would be like, yes, we have some components, they're still going to exist in some form, but only if it really makes sense if it's adding some functionality, because that's where just modeling health with.
You don't need to drill down on every single thing just because we need to drill down on every single thing.
Yeah, that's like our credo, or it started to be our credo, which is like we really want to have meaningful gameplay rather than complex gameplay for the complexity's sakes. So this is like something that is starting to be very, very important for us. And
Right.
but also to answer concretely on that question. So we have them on our plan. They are not currently planned for the initial release because there are several reasons, but like especially content would just kill us if we would just say, by the way, we want to have some components for every item, and then yeah.
Yeah, we're often fond of saying bring it to the point of realism, then bring
Yeah.
it back to the point of fun.
Exactly.
Like this, I just saw this wonderful 25th anniversary documentary for Half-Life,
Yeah.
done by a guy I really respect, Dan O'Dwyer, who he and his team made it for Valve and whatnot. And there's this wonderful moment where Gabe is just like, he goes like, I don't play video games to be real. It's like I got realism in the real world. That's not fun. It's like I got to play video games to be fun. There's always this balance. I think there's this misnomer that everything has to be uber realistic, and I'm like, no, it has to be evocative of realistic. It has to have a sense of realism and stuff whenever possible, but you always got to bring it back to fun, and again, not dragging things down with unnecessary chores.
Yeah.
I mean, how many DLCs have we ever seen for a game that just seems like a whole new world of chores have been added? It's like, why was this added to this game? I didn't need more chores. So.
And especially something that we always have to consider, like every bit that we add adds to the time it actually takes to get to the gameplay that you actually want to consume.
Yeah. No, I think actually one subcomponent that you may see, it's since the resource network doesn't apply only to ships, it also applies to locations. And one example is for puzzles, for repairing a sub-network in a particular location as part of a mission, you may get, you need to swap out these parts, which may be bespoke or may also be the same kind of parts we use in ships. So it really depends on the level of complexity we want to add to a particular area of gameplay.
So we're talking about relays. We have relays for power. Are there any plans for additional relay type points for coolant, fuel, or data?
So all of those actually go through the same set of relays. That means generally if you knock out a relay, all the resources you want to get to the items stop flowing that way. What we do have is kind of the opposite. It's relays that do not allow some resources through. This makes sense if you think of a starfare. We have the external tanks on one side and you have the internal tanks, and when you're giving fuel to some dude, you don't want to be draining your internal fuel tanks. And as far as the game is concerned, they are the same thing. They're just fuel tanks. Why cannot I take fuel from them? So we added relays that do not allow that kind of connection between both sides of the network, but we still obviously can have an alternate bypass that is turned off by default, and if you want to do that, we would allow it. But yeah, as a general rule, most ships or most situations, you're going to have all the resources going through the same route, and if you lose the connection, well, that's it.
I really like this question, actually. So obviously, there's a generic setup for ships, and different ships will have different numbers of relays and different complexities and stuff. We've been using the Hammerhead as a wonderful example. We showed the Hercules at CitizenCon. It's like this. Will there be a difference between the problems and issues and the capabilities between manufacturers? Like they're specifically asking, he goes, will Drake have more electrical faults on average than like an Origin ship? Drake owners suffer, quite a bit in the Precision universe, mostly just because they like Drake. But is there anything manufacturers? Get off of it. So are there any manufacturer-specific things built in for this?
There are actually two answers to that question.
Okay.
So the first part is every ship will have a somehow bespoke layout of where the relays will be located and how they will be connected. There will be differences between military ships, civilian ships, with military ships having more relays than civilian ships to allow for more redundancy. There will be also differences between manufacturers, because just like the way that their ships are looking, because we have to fit the relays on them, and that also dictates how the relay or the resource network is actually set up. And so there comes the first difference from. And the second is ship item manufacturers. So it's less Drake itself. So if you have like a very expensive power plant you put in your Drake ship, it will not suddenly work worse.
Because it's sitting in a Drake
Because
housing.
it's sitting in a Drake ship. No, it will still the wear and tear rate will be different. So if you invest more money in your ship items, they are less likely to be affected by wear and tear. Malfunctions might be even triggered less often. So item choice will matter in that regards. So even like coming back to the single player, so if you invest a lot of money into your ship and buy the best items ever, you even reduce the amount of like interactions you have to have with the item. So it's more likely that you don't have to run around alone in your ship and try to fix it.
Yeah, and also in addition to brands, I think we already have it in game. You have the different classes of items. In the sense, you have the competition, military, industrial, civilian. That's also part of the balancing there. Competition item would probably have a very short lifespan because it's, we expect you to, to go after the race, go back, change it altogether or repair it, while an industrial or military part is expected to be in the field for a longer time. So that will affect, the wear and tear rate, and obviously, therefore,
So
some of
the
the other
component system and everything,
Yeah.
not all Drake ships will be created equally.
Yeah,
You'll
so
get to customize the ship.
The grades will get a different meaning. Like the types will get a new meaning to that.
Oh, also, since again, this goes back to the damage system, which also, because we, without damage penetration and stuff like that, we don't actually get the fires or the actual damaging of the components. There, the ships also become a bit more relevant. The armor, what materials the manufacturers use normally. We already have some differences planned on. This brand usually uses this type of alloy, which has some certain properties, which is how you get lighter ships or heavier ships or less armor ships, as a rule.
Sometimes I feel bad about making fun of Drake owners, but we're all just having fun, folks. It's in the lore of the universe that the universe generally looks down on Drake owners. None of us think anything less of you. Think I am a Drake guy. If you look at my ships, I'm mostly a Drake person. I love the Drake aesthetic. I'm a big fan of Jim Martin, who invented most of the Drake aesthetic, going all the way back to the Cutlass. So just know that it's always in good fun, because you've all suffered clearly enough with bad taste, liking Drake. I'm one of you. Next question. Will there be any kind of danger to the engineer in case of bad component manipulation? Component blowing up in your face?
Well, the obvious one is if something overheats, it's part of the things that drives into the malfunctions or the dangers popping up. So yeah, bad heat management, for example, could suddenly lead to a power surge going through the ship and killing components, or fire starting in front of you, maybe setting you on fire if you're unfortunate. So yeah, to some degree, you can make things worse. You can always make things worse. But we're not going to insta-kill you just because you punch at a component to fix it.
Actually, that's the good part of the entire change that will come, which is we are more item focused. So it is less like a dramatic death with the entire ship directly exposed. No, you will start losing items first, and then you might be dead in the water for a long time.
Right.
Until someone picks you up, and that is all the consequence. You're just dead in the water if the right components break at the right time. If the wrong component breaks at the wrong time, so if your quantum drive, for example, explodes because of a malfunction, that might have a consequence that is very similar to what we have right now, that your entire ship explodes.
Yeah, the power plant specifically. Soft death really, what it sort of models is either the power plant, died in a peaceful way, so to speak, or you lost your relays, something like that, which you just lost power. What we currently have for big explosions is more like the reactor took a critical hit, it went on its critical load, nobody did anything about it, it exploded.
I don't want to focus too much on this, but the idea that I could pull a component out and work on it and potentially catch a fire, and potentially cause a fire, rather, makes me think of the opportunities for sabotage.
It's something we thought about, yeah.
Yeah, since you can also damage the components with FPS weapons, and obviously you can just take out the fuses or even small components. You can steal them all together. There's a lot of damage a person hiding inside your ship could do.
I'm just thinking about this. a lot of Star Citizens, have come from a game like EVE Online or something where, it's, you pretend to be somebody's friend, you become a member of their crew, in the course of a mission, you're slowly pulling components out and tuning them incorrectly, to cause malfunction. So there's a whole gameplay opportunity there that's exciting.
I think with the last system, we have a very good counter for that, which is, once you find a guy, you can just throw them out of an airlock.
Let's see. With ship life support, will opening doors automatically cycle airlocks to minimize wasted oxygen in the atmosphere?
No.
Yeah, like if there's an airlock, airlocks work like an airlock is supposed to work. They will actually cycle in, probably ideally in a smart way. If there's good air outside and good air inside, no need to cycle. But in most cases, the airlock will behave as a real-world airlock suit. On the other side, if you open the door of, let's say, you open the cargo bay of an HU while you're in space, well, there goes your air.
Yeah.
But not all ships are ideal for all scenarios. Some of them are, have these EVA suit lockers, and they have these double airlocks and, particular paths to get to space, which are safe. In others, they are not really that good for that. Obviously, you can always bend your ship so you don't lose the air, but that also comes with its own challenges. Your engineer or whoever is on the console needs to manage it properly. So that's also where part of the ship roles will come in, which are better built for certain scenarios versus others.
Yeah. You don't want to add too much automation to it because you want to leave the agency in the hands of the players, and, to be both good at managing it and to be bad. That's a certain agency too. Like some people like being bad at Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Come on, David.
Yeah, we cannot make it too safe, else you don't get hurt and it's not funny on YouTube.
Will we need to memorize ship layouts, or will we have the ability to target subsystems as well as our point of impact directly? Or will that require more advanced scanners or dedicated scout ships like the Terrapin or Hornet Tracker to allow sharing this information across the wing of ships? So basically, is there a reward for the more that you personally understand the layouts of ships and where to shoot and where these components are for bullet penetration and stuff? Or is the scanner system just going to take it all for us?
Well, we're going to have sub-component targeting. It kind of exists in some form in the game, but it's not really.
I think Yogi showed it even at CitizenCon.
Yeah, actually, for the turrets, obviously, it will also be used for stuff like, try to hit the power plant or try to hit any other internal component. At the same time, yes, if you know it, if you know where each ship's components are, you already know where to shoot. Obviously, the targeting helps you, but anything you bother to learn or any experience you have is always going to be superior, I think. Especially when it comes back, you mentioned sabotage. In that case, your use of scanners is a bit more limited, and knowing exactly where you need to go, how to deal the most damage, it's always a good skill to have.
We talked a little bit about scanners and anti-scanners last week with the FPS and flight teams and stuff. And Chris has always maintained throughout the course of this project's development that there will be counters to all of these technologies. It's like as you develop scanning, you also develop jammers and stuff. And it's like if I've got a level 2 scanner, then my scanner can overcome a level 1 jammer. But if they've got a level 3 jammer, then my level 2 scanner is going to have some trouble until I go and swap it out for a level 4 scanner. This constant kind of escalation that happens in the real world. So yeah, if you find yourself jammed and whatnot, you can't target stuff. If you do know this stuff, if you do know, I'm very familiar with the Connie Phoenix, and I know that the big central relay is right around here, and the damage system, the full damage system is online with proper penetration and everything, and you can draw fire on that. You'll be rewarded for that kind of information.
We even had that already in our demo, right? So we have a faked penetration there, and because we knew where we need to shoot, we could potentially target the power plant.
And ships have weak points, not necessarily made on purpose, but simply of the way they're built. The hull is not the same thickness in all places. The ship components, are not distributed evenly. So knowing, if your weapon can make it through the hull and the sails, and that on that particular part of the ship, it's easier to hit the components. I think that's always a win. Something good to practice and learn.
It's going to be interesting to see how that affects pilots and the way they fly too, knowing where your weak spots are and learning to not expose them during combat and stuff. It's got a lot. The resource management system has a lot of knock-ons to many aspects of gameplay. It's
and
really
actually,
cool.
that is what we're all looking forward to, right? So we really want this, that maneuvering and knowing your ship well gives you an advantage over you don't care about your ship.
For single crew vehicles, how will the pilot be notified that components need to be addressed?
Well, your ship will be on fire. No, but it's currently you already have. With the new MFDs, you're going to have probably a better display. You already know that you have this like little picture of your ship in the MFD, and you say when you get hit, you see the the red mark and the components slowly go red from blue. That's going to be part of it. Obviously, you also get the messages. I think if you play in the game right now, we already have the first set of misfires. These are the old ones, the seal failure or thruster surge, stuff like that. You're going to keep seeing that. That's also part of the new system. They are triggered, using the new logic, but they're still the same effects. But yeah, in general, it's going to be mostly that, because as a pilot, you have very limited, on a single seat fighter, you have very limited action you can take against that. Obviously, you have your triangle capacitor, wheel. You can, put more power to the seals if your things are getting hit. But at the end of the day, if you are losing a cooler or something like that, other than turning off items altogether, there's really not a lot you can do. Which is, the weak point of fighters. They don't really have that staying power in the end.
We're almost done. We've got time for maybe 3 or 4 questions, and then we'll let you go. Is the life support system in a room also tied to a fuse that can break? So I might lose access to controlling a room's atmosphere and be forced to go deal with the fire personally instead of just venting it.
Yes. Yeah, so it's even a bit more than just that the life support itself is connected to a relay. It's like each room has a vent that is then connected to its own relay. So it might even be that if a relay is destroyed or not connecting to the vent anymore, that you just lose connection to one of the rooms. Whereas, like, if you hit the life support cannot provide the rooms anymore. So that would be a total failure. But there's the concept of the vents that are sitting in each room, and they control the composition of the room, the temperature of the room. So if then the vent loses the connection, you lose the control over that room, and you have to go in there or go to the relay, fix the relay, so that you have the control over the room again, or you go directly into the room to fix what broke there.
Yeah, or you could just open a door, or I guess
or open a door.
It can be dangerous in space, but you can do that.
Actually, that is also a good counter. So because what the question was before, like, do we automatically cycle? No, and that helps there, right? So you can open the door to the room that is currently not connected anymore and make then oxygen flow from one room to the other, or even vent the other room so that the room that is currently on fire, you don't have any control anymore, is then venting the other room with itself so that you can deplete the fire there.
While we're still talking about life support, where does the air come from? Is it stored in tanks, or does the life support component take electricity and simply generate air?
Yeah, well, that is an open discussion right now. So it might change. So as of now, we have a tank that stores the atmosphere that you have in your rooms. So if you have a room, let's take an example with one room, and you want to vent that room. We don't vent the atmosphere in that room outside. We vent it into an auxiliary storage so that you don't lose it, because we see the atmosphere as a finite resource, and you should really care about your atmosphere in space because it's a precious resource, right? And so you vent it into the storage, so you have the room now completely empty with the atmosphere, and if you decide to fill the room again, it is taking the atmosphere from that storage back in. Sure, we also thought about, okay, what happens when you accidentally vent it? So we have some auxiliary atmosphere sticks that you can put in, and then we, by chemical reaction, magically create an atmosphere for that room or for the rooms of the ship. But the idea is that you always have these storage that you have to manage. So you fill it because and you have this concrete finite amount of atmosphere on your ship that you have to manage.
Yeah, and we also separate it along that way in the sense that there are tanks for oxygen and inert gases, but also for waste gases that we don't want in the atmosphere at all. There's different tanks. So yeah, managing it also limits how quickly you can get rid of good or bad air in both cases.
But also a nice way to catch atmospheres actually, like if you lost, you did mismanagement and your auxiliary tanks are empty and you're like breathing through your suit and you're depleting the oxygen from your suit. So what you can do is go into an atmosphere of a planet, open all the doors, and then suddenly all the atmosphere rushes in, you close the doors and go up again. You just have to make sure that the atmosphere of the planet is actually breathable. But that is also a valid way to fill your ship back with atmosphere.
It's kind of like, I'm imagining those cans of Perrier from
from
Spaceballs.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I think 2 questions left. How often will we encounter malfunctions and fires in normal gameplay? This question comes up after
Every time, and every time it's
Yeah.
the same answer. It's like fresh ships, very unlikely for any malfunctions. There might be some that are happening, but very minor ones. So you can even ignore them and live with them. But like if you have a ship that has several hundred hours and like the wear and tear is really, really low or really, really high, then you have to maintain it more often.
Yeah.
But we really want to make sure that it is not like annoying for players. Like we really, but this is something that we will balance once we have it out there and players give us feedback on it.
Yeah, it's really more about, for the long-term maintenance, it's more about some items being a bit less, I say, reliable. If you keep using it, it's kind of a way of telling you, hey, use something new. And with salvage and all the ways you have to get components, it's not that hard. Or you have to pay more attention to your components. But stuff like fires or anything really critical that is crippling, your ship is not gonna randomly burst into flames. That's more of a consequence of damage control. You're in a fight, you take a direct hit to a relevant component, you get an electrical fire. But so you shouldn't expect that to be cruising around Stanton and suddenly 3 rooms are on fire and you die.
But we also want to reward player choices there. That is, if you decide to like run your ship only with 20% of the performance it could run in, like have the power plant always run at 20%. So basically underpower your ship. That also has an impact on the malfunction rate. So the less you push your ship, the more likely it is that there won't be any malfunctions. But also the other way, like if you are in a combat scenario and you like want more than 100% out of your ship items, sure, that will dramatically increase the chances for malfunctions there.
Is there an RNG factor in this though?
Yeah, sure.
Is it conceivable that somebody's just going to have a really bad string of luck?
Yeah, but it's dependent on the wear and tear and it's the health of the item. So we have parameters that make it, gives us more control over when these are happening. But sure, there will be some RNG.
Yeah, for some of them, it's the conditions are more like thresholds. You are overheating by this amount. You have the power throttle over this amount. So we know you're pushing your ship. At that point, we start rolling a dice from time to time, where either nothing happens or one of the maybe minor malfunctions happens or the moderate ones happen. For other cases, we just want to say, based on the wear and tear, even at that point it has to be very, very rare in the sense that yes, we do it randomly, but maybe the mean time is supposed to be days or something like that. Simply like it could happen, but we're more interested in the player choice aspect. Overheating, running your ship at overclock all the time, stuff like that, which we think is more like the cost for that choice you made.
I get you. Last question, and normally we avoid when questions and stuff like that, just because we've been talking about resource management engineering for about 13 months now since we first introduced it at CitizenCon last year. There's a lot coming to Star Citizen in 2024. At CitizenCon, we did 2 days worth of look at all this stuff. A big chunk of the Squadron team is coming back to the PU. They're bringing all the work, or much of the work rather, that they've developed along with them. This was always the plan since we had Rich Tyrer on a SCL 2 years ago saying that they were switching this priority. We used to go PU and then into Squadron, and we were switching the priority to go Squadron and then into PU, for most of our feature stuff. We're now 2024 is now where we're going to see the big reaping of rewards of that technology, and everybody's very hyped for it, and appropriately so. Resource network not being one of those things that was developed in Squadron and brought over. Oh,
well, actually, for the CitizenCon, since Squadron had a requirement of to have the resource network.
Okay.
So because we want to get rid of the old pipe system, we actually move it from the PU, well, not from the PU, but from our feature stream to Squadron 42. We did all the development that was done for the CitizenCon, the UI, and the actually tying it to fires, fixing up the live support, all of that was done in the Squadron 42 stream. So in a way, it's actually
so even this, okay.
So in a way, it's actually coming back too.
All right. So okay, then the question is even more appropriate. What kind of time frame are we shooting for? I'm not gonna. Don't look into the camera and be like, it will be in this thing. Nobody would. I wouldn't believe you if you said that. But we have targets. What are we shooting for? What's the? You kept saying not in the first iteration. What's this first iteration of resource management intended to look like, and when are we shooting?
So we are targeting Q2 next year with the release of life support, fire, and the engineering gameplay, so the base resource network with all the base functionality. So that will have also the repair beam with it, the item functionality that we showcased in the demo. So basically everything that you saw in the demo, that is the plan for Q2.
Awesome. Thorston, Guillermo, thank you so much. I'll let you get back to work. I know you've got that big go to get to. I appreciate you taking a little time for us and being over here. We're gonna come back with a dear friend of mine, Jeff Zanelli, composer of many motion pictures and composer of Squadron 42. We're going to talk a little bit about him. Let a whole bunch of our community meet him for the very first time since we haven't had him on in so many years. And during that switchover, we had you may have seen the post-credits gag in yesterday's ISC. We originally had something else in that slot. Tom, who is one of the partners that we make Inside Star Citizen with, is the world's largest Stevie Ray Vaughan fan. And every time we were shooting those SRV interviews, he continuously was asking people, do you know who Stevie Ray Vaughan is? And he was very disappointed in that so many of our developers unfortunately did not. Do you guys know who Stevie Ray Vaughan is? Yeah, see that's what he was running at, and he was so frustrated with this. He went and personally recorded his own little guitar riff and outro, celebrating the majesty of Stevie Ray Vaughan, tremendous blues player that he was. We booted it out of yesterday's episode in order to showcase my dumb thing, but I promised him that we would showcase it here. So we'll be right back, and until then, enjoy just a little brief taste of Stevie Ray Vaughan by way of Tom, our cinematographer.
The Argo SRV, I'd say, is my pride and joy.
Greetings, citizens. I'm composer Jeff Zanelli. I wrote the music for Squadron 42, and I want to talk to you about something very close to my heart. This is the soundtrack album. And I just want to go over a few highlights. The first piece I wrote for Squadron 42 is called Coil Commander. It's actually my nickname in college. That's where I got that. And I hope you like saxophones. We have another one, Admiral Bishop's Tax Return. You're not going to believe when you find this part in game what's actually going on in this story. It's there's a lot of money laundering subplots and lots of paperwork and stuff in the game, and so I wanted to make sure there was like a paperwork theme, because I know a lot of people care deeply about taxes, tax returns, and Admiral Bishop. So we found a way of combining all of those things. Got another one. We've got Single Player at Night. It's about Jared's love life.
Hey!
Hope you like saxophones. I do. I hope you like saxophones. Oh, here's a good one. Bagel carrier. 40 seconds of food transportation. Bagel carrier. You're gonna want that. I was thinking really, really hard about what I should name this piece, and I decided on intense space action. Those are the 3 words, the 3 important words. I hope you like saxophones. The other thing, pimp your spaceship. That's right. That's you guys were asking me about space radio. Pimp Your Spaceship is the new hit. Gillian Anderson is in this. I wrote a song about that. Oh, I'm supposed to talk about the F8 Lightning, I think. Is that right? Oh, right. Sorry. No spoilers. No spoilers. Okay. I mean, I already talked about the tax return. Okay, no, that's okay. Colonel Blair's funeral. Ay. What else can we do? And I hope you like saxophones. Some of you have heard my piece, Vertical Slice. Wait till you hear Horizontal Slice. Oh, that was so bad. So there it is, the Squadron 42 soundtrack. You can buy it in any format you want, as long as it's CD. I'm Jeff Sinelli, composer for Star Citizen, Squadron 42, and I approve this CD.
Love those fresh air canisters. Hi everybody, welcome back. That was a brief skit from the old Reverse the Verse live days with our next guest, composer Jeff Sinelli. Jeff Sinelli is the composer for Squadron 42, and we haven't had him on the show for several years. Since then, we've garnered about 2 million new Star citizens who maybe have never met him, never seen him, so we thought we'd take this opportunity with Hold the Line and CitizenCon to bring him back on the show and introduce him to folks who maybe haven't heard of him, and revisit for those who have been following his tremendous work. So Jeff, welcome to the show, everybody. Right?
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thanks for bringing me back.
Everybody, geez.
It has indeed been a minute, but it's great to see you again, Jared.
You know, it's with pre-tape. You think I'd stop this and redo it, but no, we're just going to leave that in. It's still Star Citizen Live, even though it's pre-tape. I just called Jeff, everybody. Jeff, thank you for being here. I want to talk a little bit. I want to introduce you first to our Star Citizen and Squadron 42 community. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, I'm Jeff Sinelli. I write music for video games, for films, for television, for all sorts of different visual media. I mean, I guess that's been me in a nutshell for many, many years. So, yeah, that's it. I'm writing the score for Squadron 42, which is a epic journey in and of itself. Let's put it that way.
So how'd you get into the industry? Usually in these kind of get to know me segments, we usually cover. I'm always amazed. Like many people can do almost anything with their lives. Why in the world did they choose this? So that's basically my question to you. Why in the world did you choose music composition?
No, it turns out that I can't do many things with my life. I can do only this with my life. And I say it facetiously, but it is actually kind of true. This is my one skill. But what I always wanted to do this though. So I became a musician pretty late in life compared to most musicians that I know. I was 1 week shy of my 16th birthday when I got a guitar, and that was what kind of started the journey. But very, very quickly realized it was going to be a career. Music anyway was going to be my career, and that I wanted to be able to write and change styles and change genres all the time, and that sort of naturally draws you into film music and media music, games, and you look at the expanse of the types of projects I get to do, and it's very, very different from being in a band. Plus, you couple that with like, I don't really like getting in a sweaty bus and traveling across the country with, 5 other people. So I was never going to be in a band. It was not for me. Um, but I don't know that I chose it. I think it really was sort of the only thing that I really could see myself spending my life doing once I got even reasonably good at playing a guitar. It was like, no, this is the path. So
I'm genuinely envious of that when I hear folks who have that kind of clarity of vision and purpose. I worked 37 places before I landed here. And
Right.
even here, I'm on my like 6th title, and my responsibilities through here have vacillated and changed dramatically in the 9 years I've been here. I've,
Right.
I never knew what I wanted to do because I wanted to do everything.
Right. I definitely had that clarity of focus. That's exactly the way to put it. It was a drive. And but I guess on the downside is that I got my last promotion when I was like 21. I became composer, and that I shall remain, I guess.
So, so you've decided to become a composer. Where'd you start? Did you start in television? Did you go straight to motion pictures?
Oh, right. So yeah, no, okay. I went off to Berklee College of Music, which is in Boston, and I studied there. They had an engineering production track and they had a film scoring track, which is now called media scoring. And at the time, it was focused on film and television. It was actually kind of before games was even really an industry that you could consistently work in. I mean, I'm talking about the early 90s.
Yeah.
This was like the beginning of game composer as a full-time calling. Um, so, but when I finished at Berkeley, I started interning. Actually, even while I was at Berkeley, I would come out in the summers to LA and I would intern for Hans Zimmer, who is a film composer. He was writing the Lion King score when I first met him. To put a date on it, I think that's 1994.
Mhm.
And I was his intern until I graduated Berkeley a couple years later. And then I came out and worked for another composer who worked at Hans's studio named John Powell. That was really the first job that I had. I was his assistant, John's, and I did that for 3 years, and then I got my last promotion. I went freelance and became composer. you know, so that would have been right around 99 or 2000 is when went freelance as a composer. And if you look at my credits, you'll see I worked as what's called an additional music composer on John's movies, which means maybe I do a couple of the scenes here and there, but he was largely responsible for the score. Then I did that for Hans on a number of projects. And I suppose the notable kind of breakout project like that for me was the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, where it was written rather quickly. I think we had 2 or 3 weeks to write the whole score. So it was Hans and a team of like 8 or 9 composers, of which I guess I sort of moved to the head of the class, so to speak, on the project. And that was the kind of the beginning of the real the real Jeff Zanelli as composer story, I guess.
You mean a giant, humongous AAA big budget motion picture like Pirates of the Caribbean only gave you 2 to 3 weeks to compose the score?
Yes, that's an unusual circumstance.
Okay, okay.
But yes,
We don't need all
yes.
the Hollywood tea. Don't ruin your career by spilling all the
No,
Hollywood.
no, no, no. I think it's sort of well established. People know there was another composer on the project before, and that's what happened. So I get a call from Hans, who is now the second composer. The movie was on the final mix stage already. They were already doing the final mix, and they didn't have the score. And Hans called me on a Saturday and said, "You need to get to the studio." Right. I almost did a Hans Zimmer impression, and then I thought better of it. I used my own voice. So you got to get to the studio and watch this movie. We're starting right away. We're finishing in 3 weeks. You can't go to the Justin Timberlake concert. You're going to be working. And so I went to the studio with the whole gang, and it really was literally like Hans had this 5-minute piece of music he'd written overnight, and he gave it to all of us. And then it was like, we just need to start writing music. Just go. And I sort of loved the chaos of that. It was really like being in the eye of a hurricane. And you know again, I had, I guess, that sort of clarity and focus. I was able to just put my head down and write music like crazy for those 3 weeks. And it's kind of nice to know when it stops. You know, I know when I get to sleep again. Until then, I will work on Pirates.
I didn't know. We had heard that story. We've chatted a few times. I didn't realize you'd worked with John Powell. John Powell
Yeah.
was the Bourne Identity movies and Face Off, and I think, did he do Solo?
He did, but okay, but that would have been long after I was. But yes, he
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
But Face Off, funny enough, was actually what got me hired. It was John's first big Hollywood production, and he needed an assistant right away. It was a similar thing. He had a pretty short schedule, not quite as bad as Pirates, but so he needed someone right away to just kind of be there and run, you know, largely tech support. I was loading samplers and getting there early in the morning and make sure everything was working so we could sit down and work right away and
Hey, you got to
that kind
start
of thing.
somewhere.
Yeah, that was, but I loved it. Oh my,
Oh,
that's the thing. It's like someone let me in the studio door and I just never wanted to leave. And that was it still doesn't really feel like work. I mean, of course it is, but
yeah.
but I
I
enjoy
get you.
it.
I get you.
Yeah.
So okay. So obviously you've begun a healthy film career. Eventually, something breaks in your brain, and you say, "I want to do video games."
No, well, but I always did though. It's funny because I mean I'm a gamer with Atari roots, right? Like that's where it started for me.
Mhm.
So I'm like the old generation of video gamers. But I think I think in a way the 90s is really kind of the perfect time to illustrate when video gaming music got super serious. Do you know what I mean? Like that was when you started to hear fully orchestral scores. It was like for a minute there, games were promoting themselves as, oh, we have a full Hollywood sounding score. And nowadays, I don't see that type of promotion because I think the games industry is recognized very clearly we're doing our own thing now. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a genre and it's actually very different in some ways from film and television, which is also it's almost like a third career. Um, I'm a little bit lucky. I get to do all three of those things, but some composers, they excel in games or they excel in television or they excel in film, but not the others. So I don't know. I was always built in the way that I wanted to spread out and do something different. And the conversation I have with my agent all the time is what I want to do next is something totally different from whatever I finished, whatever that means. So I'm not necessarily the composer that's going to do only superhero movies or only sci-fi video games or only horror movies. I love that I get to just go all over the place. That's probably why it doesn't feel like work. I still feel like I'm playing around a lot.
No, I hear you. That's great. What are some of the video game scores people might recognize from you?
Wow, let's see. So I mean, Squadron 42 far and away the biggest video game credit, but I think it's probably the biggest video game credit for anyone.
Oh,
So that that goes that goes that goes without saying. I worked on an EverQuest Champions of Norath, which was a kind of a spin-off. It was not a persistent universe. I worked on one of the Shrek games, and then I worked on a series of Call of Duty games, which was for the NDS. So that was, this Call of Duty with the stylus and everything. It was
oh
really
yeah,
they were pretty wild, but it was fun because they had their own identity separate from the I guess the mainline Call of Duty games. But I think it's not lost on me that Squadron 42 is the peak of my video game career thus far. Well, or probably ever.
Well, fingers crossed. What we've heard so far has been stellar. We're going to get to that in a second. So let's talk about how you got hooked up with Chris and Squadron 42. Where did that come from? I know, was it from your work on Outlander, or am I just
Yes.
assuming? Okay.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So hopefully, I wonder if everybody knows. Chris made a very, very cool movie called Outlander. Gosh, 15 years ago now, maybe, or close to it, which was a kind of a take on the Beowulf story, but set in Viking times with I guess you'd say a spaceman, an alien man that crashes to Earth and brings the monster with him, basically. And then using Viking technology has to go fight this high-tech monster. It's quite cool. It's a monster movie. It's really fun. It's a multi-genre sort of sci-fi fantasy thing, which is like exactly in the world of what I want to do. And I actually met Chris through, I would have been brought onto that project. Let's see, maybe I met Howard McCain, who directed it, and
Mhm.
then I met with Chris and John Schimmel, who produced, and um so we made a movie together. I mean, it really started that way. And I think really what happened then was Chris said, I'm making Star Citizen, and it's going to be split into really two worlds. And we have the PU, which everyone's been playing for years now, and we have Squadron 42, which is narrative. Um, Different very much story-wise from the PU. In the PU, the players are writing their own story. In Squadron 42, the player is involved in another bigger story that already exists. And that, I think, is what drew Chris to ask me about it, because it's very much designed to feel like you're moving through a very long, epic story. It's story driven, and that is, that's, I guess, the province of film composers. He recognized how I was able to tell his very complicated story in Outlander, and then, how that might expand out into the universe of Star Citizen, which is quite a big story to tell. So
Yeah, and of course, Pedro Camacho is our wonderful
yes.
composer for Star Citizen. You're the composer for Squadron 42. Do you guys ever get to chat? Do you ever get to share notes or meet at a
Yes.
convention or anything like that?
Yeah, well, we've never been in person together. Funny you mention it, but we Zoom every now and again just to kind of sync up with each other. Not necessarily to get the music to sort of, I don't know, cross-pollinate from one to the
Right.
other. It's really not the goal. It's always been kind of separate identities, but um, we're both big supporters of each other's work, and I'm eternally jealous that Pedro's music is out in the world already, and you all get to hear it. That's why something like Hold the Line, which you were talking about, is a little glimpse into the enormous amount of work that I've already done on Squadron that won't come to light until people are, until we get it into the player's hands.
Right.
So Pedro gets a kind of a like a rolling delivery where every few months you all get to hear his new brilliant work. So
Yeah. Uh,
so I just call him to tell him I'm jealous. That's what.
That's what, well, as Squadron 42 is now feature complete and moving into polish phase and stuff. I'm sure we'll have more and more opportunities for you and me to get together and share your music with the folks. Before we let you go, I want to talk about Hold the Line. Folks got to hear roughly 25 minutes of your Squadron 42 score. I know a lot of folks would ask, was that stuff just created expressly for the video? Or is it actually representative of the game, of what you've done for the game? And I want to ask that question and then add in a supplemental question: bagpipes, and then let you go.
Yes, bagpipes. Maybe I'm going to answer your questions in reverse order,
Okay.
because bagpipes is the order of the day. No, so it's funny. Okay, actually, that sequence which you do see, the opening, it's a cinematic in game. That music was written very specifically for that sequence, and everything obviously still work in progress, but I believe me, we're keeping the bagpipes. We experimented quite a lot with different instrumentation for the fleet reveal. Let me back it up. Actually, initially that piece of music is written as a UEE theme. It actually functions sort of like uh, you know, most of the world's navies have a theme song, right? The U.S. Navy, I think it's "Eternal Father, Strong to Save." It's a hymn,
Yeah.
and so we started there. It was something Chris Roberts and I talked about. What if we had a hymn for the UEE Navy? Like, what would their theme be? And in fact, there's even very wide variations of this piece of music already getting used in various parts of the game. We only showed one little glimpse of it for Hold the Line. But that is a theme for the UEE, for the Navy as a whole. And it works in all sorts of ways. It can be very emotional, it can be very somber, it can be very triumphant, it can be officious, it can be used as score, it can be used, there's a set of lyrics actually written for it. So that's a piece of music that's gonna be heard many, many times throughout the game. But the fleet reveal is one of the first times you hear it, and I thought, well, what needs to happen here is it needs to be a piece of music that represents that the UEE is not one country or one ethnicity or one nation's purpose. It's the purpose of Earth. I mean, it's in the title, UEE. So the piece of music could represent really any culture and all culture from anywhere on the Earth, because here we are united in defense of our planet. So it meant we could go exploring instrumentation, anything really, anything that has the right grandeur for the moment. And so there was an orchestral version of that sequence that played nicely, but maybe felt, I don't know, not bespoke enough to the sequence. And once we got to the bagpipes, and there's also taiko drums from Japan, and there's some drums from South America, and so it actually is a combination of many cultures, to represent, this is our fleet, this is the gathering that we have put together to defend the planet. I realize that's a lofty goal for a 10-second piece of music, but this is the type of
We're
ambition, I think.
I was going to say, we're no strangers to ambition here.
Yeah,
We're no
exactly.
strangers to ambition. Yeah. So that was bagpipes. And
That was
the second question,
bagpipes.
so this is, you confirm that this is music that people would hear in the game. It's the UEE theme.
That one is indeed thematic. Then the rest of the Hold the Line video is also Squadron music, but not necessarily being used thematically. It's more like, especially because the way it's cut, we're going from location to location and event to event, and we're not necessarily showing it in linear order.
No.
So you're getting a sense of what the some of the soundscape of the score will be. But I think there's a lot more than bagpipes that are going to stand out, I think, to make the score feel special for all of the different, especially places, but all of the different story arcs that we're telling with this. I mean, it's a huge story.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, hope you all like saxophones too.
Yeah, well, we haven't done the saxophone version of the UEE hymn. Now that you mention it, maybe I'll get on that.
I still have our fake soundtrack, man. I still got it.
Oh, I love it. Admiral Bishop's Tax Returns was on there. I can't remember if it's track 3. Maybe.
Yeah, it was track 3. Good memory.
Was it really?
Good memory.
Look at that.
All right, Jeff. That's it. That's all we got time for, man. Thank you so much for.
I could keep talking.
No, we gotta save it. We got a whole Squadron 42 promotional thing. We get to start once once the game goes further along, and we'll have plenty of time to talk there. For now, we just want to. We had what was it? Technically it was breakfast for lunch, I think is technically what I had. We had our little hang out when we were there, and I said, let's have you on the show and talk a little bit about some bagpipes and introduce you to some people. And so that's all we're doing for today. So thank you so much. Thank you for waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning to do this over there.
Problem.
And we'll see you later, man. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared. I'll see you soon.
So yeah, that's it for this week's show. Special thanks to Guillermo and Thorston and Jeff Zanelli for being here on the show with us this week. We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules to do that. There won't be a show next week, as I'm going to be off in Ireland for another Bar Citizen event. So if you're in Ireland and Dublin, you can check that out. I'll see you there. Next week, ISC returns with a look at the Pyro Playground and how that all came together and what was involved there and stuff. It was a pretty big event in the development of Star Citizen, and we thought for certain we could take a look at that and how that came together while we all head into the amazing new year that was spec'd out at CitizenCon. There's a lot of stuff coming, so we appreciate you indulging us taking another week to look back at something before we continue to look at all the amazing things going forward. So for what show is this? Star Citizen Live. I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for watching. And no, this doesn't get any better when it's pre-taped.